Good evening and a warm welcome to everyone here tonight. My name is Corey Callahar, and I am the principal at Westside High School here in the Wenatchee School District. This year, I have the privilege and honor to work with our district supporting PBIS and social emotional learning, which has included the Wellbeing Project, which is bringing you tonight's event. Thank you so much for choosing to spend a portion of your evening with us as we forge through the funk together and look to find those hidden treasures of hope and resilience. Tonight, the Wenatchee School District is partnering with Confluence Health for this presentation. From Behavioral Health Services, we have Dr. Timothy Day and Dr. Casey Grass, and they're here representing the clinical side of the conversation. While we have Ernie Garza, counselor at Newberry Elementary, and Haley Griffith from Foothills Middle School representing the Wenatchee School District. Together, the four of them have a roughly half-hour presentation for you. We encourage you to participate in the chat for any questions you might have, clarifications, or accolades. We will be monitoring the chat and preparing your questions for the experts at the end of the presentation. I want to thank our presenters in advance tonight for the countless hours of preparation that went into tonight's event. These four amazing professionals are here to help us celebrate the successes that we didn't know were there. I also want to thank Rosie Martin, who is handling the translation services this evening. Rosie, thank you for working your magic for us tonight. And I again want to encourage your questions. I want to encourage your comments in the chat. And I just hope you enjoy the program, and I'll be back to pop in at the conclusion of the presentation to help moderate the questions for this evening. Thank you so much, and I'll welcome our presenters.
All right. Thank you, Corey, for that awesome introduction. On behalf of all of the presenters tonight, we just want to say again, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to hang out with us tonight. We know that the weather is getting nicer and activities are starting, so we're very grateful that you are hanging out with us here tonight. As you know, we are talking about celebrating the successes we didn't know were there. This last year has been hard. It's been hard on all of us for different reasons. The purpose of tonight is to shed light on the positives that have come to fruition from this time. We know that it's been a year of craziness, and while we can see the light at the end of the tunnel, staying positive and optimistic is getting a bit harder in this home stretch. We are going to leave you with some ways to help you forge through the end of this COVID-19 funk. But before we get into it, I want to start with some introductions. I'm Haley Griffith. I am a counselor at Foothills Middle School. This is my second year in the Valley, so I might still be a new face to many of you. I get to work with anything from girl drama to depression and anxiety and confidence issues. As you may know, you might remember, middle school is a wild ride, and I'm so grateful I get to be along the journey with you and your children.
All right, my name is Ernie Garza. I'm a school counselor at John Newberry Elementary, and I've been working with the Wenatchee School District for just over 3 years now. And as Haley was saying, middle school is a crazy year and a transition year for our youth in the community. And I get to help foster and shape their young minds just before they get to that middle school age. So yeah, thanks for being here.
My name is Dr. Tim Day. I'm a psychologist here at Confluence Health. I've been in the community here for about 4 years, and I'm excited to talk about resilience.
My name is Dr. Casey Grass. I'm also a psychologist at Confluence Health, and I lead our integrated behavioral health team. I'm the clinical director over that team, and I've been with Confluence about 5 years now, and I'm excited to be here tonight and partner with the school district on this presentation.
All right, before we get started, I'm just going to provide a brief overview of the content that we're going to be discussing in tonight's program. So we're going to start with talking about the COVID-19 impact on our family, our jobs, our health, and our community overall. We're then going to touch on the stress and how we can actually use that stress to our benefit and advantage. Moving into flipping the script, some might say that this last year has been a lost year, but we're going to highlight the growth and the challenges that we overcame. Then we're going to define and elaborate on what it means to be resilient and its importance. Then we're talking about continuing this journey because we're not quite out of the woods yet. We still have obstacles to overcome, and it starts with you. Then we're going to move into finding gratitude and how through feeding our optimism, we can improve our physical and mental health. And then we're going to end tonight's program just touching on community resources that we think might be beneficial to you all.
It's rare that we see something with such a global impact as COVID-19. It's been in the news constantly. Many countries have had lockdowns. We're already talking about moving back to phase 2 in different parts of Washington, and it continues to impact our life in many different ways. And while we've all shared this experience, the specific nature and the impact of COVID-19 has differed around the world and has differed from person to person. I want to spend a moment here and talk about specific areas where this has differed and the impact that this has had, in some ways positive and in many ways negative. It's impacted the family. For some, we've lost family members or been unable to see loved ones. For others, we've had changes in the family dynamic. We're not able to interact with our family members in the way that we want. And on the other hand, for other families, this has been an opportunity to draw closer. We've had more time with one another. It's impacted the workplace. Money has been tight for many people and their jobs possibly uncertain. Others might have lost their position, maybe had changes in their living situation, or been uncertain where their next paycheck's going to come from. Still, others have found new jobs. They found a way to pursue their passions and their talents in a way that wasn't expected prior to COVID-19. It's of course impacted us socially. Many have been unable to spend time with their close friends, or they felt very isolated, unable to connect with others. And still others have found ways to connect in other ways, through virtual appointments, through virtual meetings with family members, and connecting through online or video games. It's impacted us spiritually. For many, we've been unable to gather in areas that we might have wanted to otherwise, or been unable to share beliefs with one another. Yet others have found this as a time to reflect on their beliefs and think, what do I believe? What do I find meaningful? And it's also impacted health. COVID-19 has led many of us to worry about our health and to consider, what if we contracted this? What might the impact of this be? What does our health look like? And if you're like 40% or more of most Americans, perhaps you've struggled with anxiety or depression as a result of COVID-19. And still others have found a way to prioritize their health at this time. They've used this as an opportunity to explore self-care. So the point is that every person has experienced change in some way. For many, it's been tough, and for many, there have been some unexpected benefits.
All right. So as many of you know this, COVID has had a huge impact on schools this past year. Our schools have had to pivot and change the entire structure of education. While there is no doubt that education has been challenging this year, there have been some really exciting changes and growth that have taken place. Whether you are a teacher, a student, a parent, or now a parent that can classify as a teacher after this last year, I want everyone to take a moment and congratulate yourself. Give yourself a pat on the back. Do whatever you got to do because we've made it this far, which is awesome. I could be on a soapbox for hours about this, but there have been so many positive things that have come out of COVID, and I've highlighted the top 5 things that I think and I have seen in schools. The most profound positive impact that I have observed in students is the new skills that kids have gained. Developmentally, middle schoolers are still really sharpening their executive functioning skills. The level of self-management, time management, and organization that remote learning required of students is beyond what we would have expected of them in a normal situation. But we gave them this autonomy and they absolutely rocked it. Some students maybe needed a little bit more nurturing or extra support, but every single day I leave work impressed and inspired by the growth that my students have shown. And while I work in a middle school, I know that this is the same across all grade levels, elementary through high school. There has been so many new skills learned in this time. I could go on and on about technology, but I think all you have to do, if you haven't seen it already, is watch a kindergartner or a first grader navigate through the iPad and get to all of their classes. I mean, they're amazing. They put me to shame on technology, and technology has made this so much better for us, whether you're working from home in your profession, or if you are a student that was able to get accessible education at home through this time. It has been so important to us throughout this time. I want to touch on one of the most challenging parts of being at home, especially for teens, which was the lack of social interaction. While we can't fill all the social gaps with technology that school provides for students, the technology we adapted certainly helped. Our staff had to get creative in ways so that we could nurture social connections and how we could reach students that were not engaged. We have become experts in contacting, searching for students, and making home visits. We learned a lot about our students through this time, and it has given staff a really unique opportunity to support families in a broader way than what was typical. I see this as really impactful because it has broken barriers to the student home connection. And I think that is going to change the way that we connect with students from this point forward. I also want to shed light on some students that are thriving at home. We have students that were really shy at school and have been able to come out of their shell and connect because of the comfort of being at their own home. So I just want to say, take a moment. It's okay if you didn't struggle during this time. It's okay if you're the one that is thriving throughout this. The final positive that I want to touch on that has been really apparent to me as we are embarking on this hybrid learning journey is that smaller class sizes are amazing. This is probably the only time that we will ever be able to have class sizes this small. If you've ever talked to a teacher, I'm sure that this is something that they will praise. Students are able to make deeper connections with their teachers through individualized attention that they are receiving. Additionally, some of our students that struggle with behavior or staying on task have way less distractions. Behavior issues are almost non-existent. It has given students that maybe struggle being on task or struggle behaviorally, it's given them an opportunity to be successful in school in ways that they maybe haven't experienced thus far. So before we go to the next slide, I just want to conclude with one final thought. I want you to give yourself and your student grace during this time. It is really unlikely as a country or even a world that we will ever experience something so profound all at the same time. I hear a lot of buzz about learning loss, and I want to make sure that everyone understands that our students are not behind if the whole world is behind. Schools will continue to adapt, and these students will continue to grow, and they will end up with greater character and personal skills that will support them throughout their life because of this experience. Okay, next slide.
So we've highlighted the impact of COVID-19 in pretty much virtually every area of our life. For many, this has been very tough. And like we've highlighted, we have to work in achieving success through this. And so this required a theme of adaptability. When we experience stress, which many of us had with COVID-19, we are therefore need to do something with that behavior. As we continue through this pandemic, success requires some level of adaptation to work through what we're going through. The good news is that our body has helped us to adapt with this. It's motivated us to respond. And when we cope with the stress, when the stress comes up, we therefore have to take responsibility of what do we want to do to move through this situation? How do we want to try to help ourselves to achieve success and use that stress that we're feeling to motivate us? Left unattended, stress can have some very harmful consequences. It can start to feel overwhelming. One of our goals for tonight is to give some ideas. Well, how do you manage stress? How do you find resilience when you're going through something very difficult?
So kind of building on what Dr. Day was saying, what are the benefits of being mindful and aware of our levels of stress? And what are some of the benefits that we can get both physically and mentally from trying to engage in activities that will help us reduce our level of stress? So just a few highlights are mentioned here as far as benefits to us physically. Just overall better physical health. When we are aware of our stress and take steps to reduce that, we're going to feel better physically, and it can actually lengthen our lifespan as well. I think sleeping better, that's one that's probably obvious to everyone. We all know that if we're feeling really stressed, we're not getting good quality sleep. We're struggling to stay asleep, we're having restless sleep. When we're using some of the skills that we're going to highlight shortly and sleep better, reduce our stress, it helps us sleep better. It helps us get sick less often. That's pretty important considering that we are still in the pandemic. Other benefits include like less muscle tension, higher tolerance to pain, better control over our weight. There's lots of physical benefits and lots of mental health benefits as well. When we are able to use some of the skills to bring our stress levels down, we're able to think more clearly. We're able to use those things that we know are going to help us feel better and improve our mood. When we have clearer thinking, it opens us up to being more creative. We can go out and engage in lots of different activities. We are able to problem solve in a different way. When we are feeling really stressed, our brain is just taking all of that energy and focusing on that stress, and that's where all the attention is going. When that reduces, we're able to implement some of these things. And another added benefit is just less anxiety and depression overall. Next slide. So kind of to sum up some of what we've talked about so far, if you're feeling super exhausted right now, it's not just you. You are definitely not alone in that. I mean, I think we've already kind of touched on the global impact that this pandemic has had on everyone in all aspects of our life. There's kind of this term of a collective trauma. This year has been traumatizing to a lot of folks in a lot of ways. It's had a lot of impacts educationally, occupationally, financially, family relationships. The list goes on and on. But what I also want to highlight is that while we've all kind of gone through a collective experience, is that we all also have our own unique way that this has impacted us. And we don't want to ignore that. That's really important to think about, not only how it's affected everyone, but how has it affected you? And so as we start to talk about resilience and some of the things that we can start to do, I think just kind of take a moment to think about how has this impacted me and what are some of those tools that I can take away and maybe start to implement.
Thankfully, human beings are resilient. We're made to recover from very difficult life events. Resilience is sometimes defined as the ability to bounce back from a life event. Taken one step further, though, in many situations, resilience can also represent an opportunity for growth. Oftentimes, when someone goes through something awful that they would never want to go through, they suffer, but then out of that comes a new level of growth they wouldn't have achieved otherwise. So while none of us would ever wish to go through something like COVID-19 again, this is also an opportunity for growth that might not have been there otherwise. So when we define resilience as bouncing back, this implies a level of action. Again, a responsibility on our part to do something when we're coping with a situation. And this is important. This means that through resilience, by developing resilience, this is something that we can cultivate, that we can work towards. Or in other words, we can make choices to enhance ourselves and achieve a level of post-traumatic growth that might not otherwise have been possible, to reach new levels that would be quite exciting, that we might not have been able to do.
All right, thank you. So I am going to be talking about the 7 C's of resilience. And before we get into it, I want to acknowledge that 7 is a lot of C words to remember. So if you need to take a screenshot of this slide, please do. There are 7 main components of resilience. You can use these 7 C's of resilience as a way to evaluate your resiliency, or when you're anticipating a stressful situation, you can use this to help you find ways through. For time's sake, I'm going to go through these a little bit quickly, but if you have one that you would like some more advice on how to nurture for yourself or for your student, please keep it in mind and ask us in the questions portion. So the first C is competence. And this is the ability to know how to handle stressful situations. Essentially, this is being a problem solver and being able to problem solve through your stressful situation. The second C is confidence. And this is the belief in your own abilities when faced with a real life situation. This is believing that you are tough, believing that you are capable of overcoming a stressful situation. The third C is connection. And arguably, in my opinion, I believe that this is the most important, especially for kids. It's so important for kids to have a strong connection with a positive adult. It could be a grandparent, it could be a parent, any positive adult in their life. For adults, it's equally as important to have your tribe, however many that might be, of positive people that you can rely on and depend on when times get tough. Character, I'm losing track. I think this is the fourth one, is a strong sense of self-worth and confidence. So this and confidence goes hand in hand. But it also is being aware of your values and being able to stick to them when you're stressed out. Contribution is the next one. And this is important for kids and adults alike. It's important for them to feel like you can contribute to the life around you. This could be helping others, being involved in activities, sports, hobbies, church, maybe your profession if you really, really, truly enjoy it. All of those things are important to giving your life purpose, which is really important to resiliency. The next one is coping. Coping is having a wide array of coping skills, whether that's social skills, stress management skills, anger management skills. It's having a big toolbox and knowing when to use them and actually using them. That's the key. I think we all know about breathing techniques and mindfulness, but they only work if we actually put them into action when we're feeling stressed out. The last is control. And this is important to adults and kids alike, feeling like you have control over your decisions and your actions and reactions. You might not have control over the situation, but you can control what you do after. Next slide.
Okay, so we have a lot of great information about what is resilience. So how do we start to put that into action? What are some of the steps that we can take? Kind of this first point here says, what do you have control over? I think kind of a theme that we've all run into this past year is feeling a lack of control. There's so many things that we didn't choose, didn't want, and just had to adapt. But as Haley was just saying, there are things that we do have control over. We have control over our reactions. We have control over some of the things that we can implement in our day-to-day life to start to build those resiliency skills. Resilience is not necessarily something that you're just born with. Fortunately for us, it's a skill that we can learn and build over time. And so it does start with us. It starts with taking very small steps each day. Mindfulness being a really important kind of ingredient to building those resiliency skills. Mindfulness is just about being in the present moment. It's learning how to let go of focusing on the worries of the past, things that have already happened, as well as worrying about things that might happen in the future. And that's where we tend to get stuck, is worrying about the past and the future. Mindfulness is like here and now. What can I do right now? And being really present in that. And being okay with things not always being okay. This past year hasn't always been okay, and that's fine. Some days we might feel really great and might be able to see those positives, and other days we might not be able to. And just kind of accepting where we are in that moment each day, while also focusing on what are those steps I can still take, even if today doesn't feel so great and it feels like I'm struggling a little bit more, or I'm just a little bit more frustrated about those things I can't control. And so with mindfulness, there's a lot of different things that can be as simple as belly breathing, taking deep breaths, getting out into nature and just disconnecting and just reconnecting with kind of our senses and what's around us in that moment. Connecting with family and friends and just being really present and engaged. All those are examples of ways that you can kind of be mindful in that present moment, letting go of those other worries. Protecting your peace. So what are the things that you enjoy? What are the things that bring a smile to your face every day or bring some type of sense of fulfillment? Thinking about those, reflecting on those, and finding ways to do more of that, even if it's small. If getting outside and being able to take a walk is something that makes you smile, making sure that you have 10 to 15 minutes a day that you can get out and do that. Again, it's those really small steps. And changing our mindset. So letting go of those things we can't control and just saying, I'm not going to continue to spend my mental energy thinking about those. I'm going to try to focus on these other ways that I can build resilience over time. Next slide. So along with the idea of resilience is also perseverance. So what does that mean? That's just kind of our continued effort to do or achieve something despite really difficult circumstances. So exactly what we've had to do over this past year, and unfortunately probably a little bit of what we need to continue to do to get through this kind of final push of the pandemic, is having some perseverance, which goes hand in hand with resilience. I was trying to blend those words there for a second. So again, it doesn't happen overnight. It's about taking really small, specific, intentional steps and making sure that we take the time to build those skills. And what's going to happen is as future going, even though it's hard, deal, but we're going to be able to get through it. And it's going to be a little bit easier over time as we build those skills. So building on connections. I mean, we've kind of already highlighted this one a lot, but those connections with friends, with family, colleagues, our school communities, all of those are really important. And taking the time, again, even if it's a small thing, like having a meal once a week with a friend or doing family dinner a few nights a week, to be present in that moment and engage with those who are really important to us. Taking care of our mind, body, and soul. I mean, that one we could go do an entire presentation on why that's important. But again, it's those small steps. So sometimes that can be really overwhelming. Like, oh my gosh, how can I take care of all of those things? That seems huge. Focus on eating one healthy meal a day. If that's the best that you can do that day, great. Then you've taken care of your body and you've taken a small step in the right direction. Making exercise a priority, connecting with nature, re-engaging with, spiritual, religious beliefs. Those are all really important things that we can do. And we don't have to do those all at once. We can start with one and work others in as we go. And then positive thinking and gratitude. There's so much to say on that one too, about just, taking that moment to reflect and kind of where are my thoughts going? Or am I getting too bogged down in the worries and the negative, and trying to focus on what are those positive things that, bring me joy throughout my day.
All right, thank you, Dr. Grass. So I'm going to take it a step further in talking about gratitude and finding gratitude. So gratitude is the state of being grateful, thankful, and appreciative. But the definition that I choose to use with my students at the elementary level is more of an action. So choosing to notice and appreciate things in our life, things in others, and things in the world. And the reason I use this definition is because it makes gratitude feel more like a choice, an action. And just for clarity, gratitude, it's not the same as positive thinking. So positive thinking is thinking about how things could be, whereas gratitude rather is appreciating the things in our lives that already exist. So why gratitude, and how does it lead to positive impacts and outlooks? Well, practicing gratitude is scientifically proven to actually act as a natural antidepressant and a mood booster by triggering the neurotransmitters in our brain. So through expression or receiving gratitude, the limbic system in our brain, this is the region of our brain responsible for emotions and memory, is activated. So neurotransmitters such as serotonin and dopamine are released, and these are our feel-good chemicals in our brain. So similar to how Dr. Day talked about stress and impacts, practicing gratitude actually can reduce stress, and the benefits include those similar to stress reduction strategies: better sleep, social bonding, the release of toxic emotions, and overall immune system boost. So you're probably thinking, well, that's great, but how do I make this applicable to my life? Well, it doesn't have to be a major life change. Start small. So when you're struggling or stressed out or just in a bit of a funk, take a mindful moment to show appreciation of your life, others, relationships you may have, and the world around you. So what's going well? Who are you grateful for? Plan an act of kindness for someone else. And then when it comes to implementing gratitude for your family, think Thanksgiving style dinner, but maybe a little less formal. And just take an opportunity at the dinner table or maybe in the car ride to share what went right each day. Discuss others you are grateful for. So modeling gratitude for your family and loved ones when things get rough actually creates an opportunity for the young ones around you to see what it's like to practice gratitude. And then when things are rough for them and you could acknowledge that, challenge them to take a mindful moment to appreciate the things in their life. So taking this a step further, making gratitude a way of life or more habitual, let's talk about feeding your optimism. So taking time each day to journal 3 or more things that you're grateful for, being very intentional and going out of your way to write a note for someone or physically go up and let somebody know how much you appreciate them. Again, we've touched on social relationships. So what better way to strengthen a social relationship than giving a compliment? So I don't know about you, but I very much love being acknowledged and getting a compliment. So, and we know that the same feelings that we get when we receive a compliment, we actually get when we give one to someone else. As we know, this last year, we've not always been able to be with our friends and family in person, but you can strengthen and maintain those social bonds just by picking up the phone, shooting a text message, writing an email. Taking a step further, giving back, getting out in the community, volunteering, helping others in need is another great way to feed optimism. This provides a sense of purpose and community. So again, why is this important? Well, it's in times like these, we need any boost we can get. Because ultimately what we know is that through practicing gratitude, we can actually create a more consistent, permanent, and long-lasting state of positivity and happiness within ourselves, within our families, and ultimately our community. So I'm just going to leave you with a quick quote here from David Stilt Rance. He's an author and monk that dedicated his life to practicing and studying gratitude. And this is what he had to say about gratitude. The root of joy is gratefulness. It is not joy that makes us grateful. It is gratitude that makes us joyful.
All right, so we have talked about a whole lot tonight, and we've given you some really great tools to help you get through this funk. But if you're sitting there and thinking, I might need a little bit more than practicing gratitude, I'm in a serious funk, that is okay. One of the crucial aspects of being resilient is being able to reach out for help. Just because you're resilient does not mean you have to do it alone. And I hope what has become apparent through this presentation is that our community agencies and our schools, we're collaborating and we're working together. So before I get into all the different ways you can reach out for help, I just want to say that there is no wrong way to go about this. I'm biased because I'm a school counselor. I think that it's the easiest way to start there, but there is absolutely no wrong way to go about this. So I'm going to share all the different ways that you could go, and there might even be more, but these are the easiest in the Wenatchee Valley that I can think of. So you could start with your school counselor. You can find your school counselor on your school website, or you can just call your school and ask for the school counselor. Your school counselor has a working knowledge of the different agencies within the Valley and what insurance they take, and can help remove some of the barriers in terms of getting your first session started with a counselor. We can help initiate the referral process as well. So you can also call directly to a mental health agency. So we have Confluence, CVCH, Children's Home Society, and Catholic Charities. All four are awesome, and all four provide different services for our community. So you can call them directly. And even if you call the wrong one, we all know how to get you the support that you need, so we can connect you to the right people, no matter which route you take. I also included the 2 crisis lines. So if you want to take a moment and screenshot this, these would be some good numbers to have in your camera roll, just in case. The crisis line is just the general line that you can call if you're in crisis, or if you just need someone to talk to. They have trained professionals there ready to talk you through whatever you're going through. I also included the teen line, which is trained teens that are ready to talk to teenagers, because one thing we know is that teenagers like to talk to their peers more than they like to talk to adults a lot of the time. And so if that is you or your child, maybe the teen line is one that you would recommend. The last is the text line, which is really cool for anyone who feels maybe not super comfortable being vulnerable on the phone with an adult, but you can use the text line, and it's the same trained professionals that can support you through that. Dr. Grass or Dr. Day, do you have anything you want to add to that from the community perspective?
I'll just reiterate what you said, and that's that we're a community and there is no wrong door to go into. So if you're a little bit uncertain, where can I go get help? We all work with one another. Even though we might be different agencies, that doesn't mean that we can't communicate on your behalf if that's something that you're looking for. So don't let that be a barrier to seeking help.
All right, team. Thank you very much. What a wonderful and amazing presentation, and a lot of great information. You 4 are absolutely amazing and so knowledgeable. So thank you for the presentation tonight. And for the community out here, our dream team expert panel here is amazing and ready to tackle any questions that may have come up during the presentation. And you're still able to put those questions into the chat if you would like. And we have people moderating those chats so we can get those right to the experts here. And we have a couple of questions here that we're going to get kicked off with. So here we are. Is everybody ready for some questions? Okay, they are ready, folks. So the first question is this. My child has been experiencing additional undue stress due to the many changes this year. I would like him to learn more about stress and stress reduction. How do I go about finding the right place to address his needs? I know that you kind of just talked about that, but maybe if you guys would want to elaborate more on what that process looks like, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll go first. I think a great way to start is with your school counselor. We can really decide whether, maybe your kid is needing, maybe I can support your student at school, or if we need to enlist in the support of our amazing community agencies to provide some one-on-one support on a more regular basis. I would say your school counselor is an awesome resource, but we do have a way bigger caseload, and we do have a lot of other things going on. So sometimes we can provide immediate support, and we can provide support as an as needed basis. But if you're looking for something more regular, or maybe a little bit scheduled and weekly, I would say that we could connect you to the outside agencies, as well as maybe providing some support in school. Tim, I saw that you might have something to say. Do you want to add to that?
Sure, yeah. So speaking on the clinical side of things, at least the 2 biggest agencies here in the Wenatchee Valley, Competence Health and CVCH, we have providers located in just about every primary care clinic and pediatric center. So if you come in and you bring up and you're comfortable bringing up to your primary care doctor, let them know how you're feeling, and they can help link you to somebody. Access is tough for getting in long-term care, but we can get somebody in there pretty quickly. And so we can really start turning that around and get you some help. And the other thing I wanted to add with that too is a mention on timing. Trouble is easier to prevent than to fix. So if you're worried about your kiddo and you're wondering, should I get them help or not get them help? Go on the side of caution. Say, let's get them help now, because if we can start addressing something early on, it's going to be a lot easier in the long term to make sure that they're feeling great.
Excellent. Thank you both for the answer there to the question. There's a couple more here. So this one is about resilience. It says resilience is a powerful concept and tool. I feel that it would benefit all of us to learn more about it. Do you know, this looks like a self-help question here, but do you know any quality websites or resources that can offer more in-depth information?
I know there's a lot of great resources out there, even if you just browse Amazon and Google resilience for adults and children. There's a lot of great researchers out there that look at it. So I think any of those are great places to go. As far as the Resilience Center, if you just Google positive psychology and look at some of the researchers that come up with that, they have a lot of great links to practices that you can try to build resilience at home and just general surveys of the research and literature that there's available.
Okay.
I was going to jump in and just add a little
Please.
bit more too. I think just a lot of professional associations as well, such as like the American Psychological Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics, some of those very reputable kind of professional organizations in a particular field such as psychology or pediatrics. They always have really good resources and then links to other sites that maybe are a little bit more specific for resilience, but you can also trust from those sites that if they are recommending something that it has a good evidence base behind it and is going to be a good source for you to gather some more information.
Excellent. Great tips and tools. We appreciate that. This next one is on the gratitude section. Let's see, can you share some of the ways that families can practice gratitude together? I know, Ernie, you mentioned a couple of things about that, but maybe if you have just on the tip of your tongue, if you have some more strategies you could throw our way.
Well, I did touch on, kind of like that Thanksgiving style dinner. And I just know for me personally, it was always felt very cliche. And it was like, okay, here we are at Thanksgiving, everyone go around and everyone gets the eye roll. So that's why I talk about maybe just being a little bit less formal. If you're, out to dinner, just casually, just bring it up. You know what? I'm grateful for just the opportunity to be here, and really just want to highlight modeling for your children and your family. So as opposed to kind of maybe being overly intentional and, maybe making it feel forced, just modeling it constantly. If your family members, your spouse, see you, practicing, whether it's, practicing and finding gratitude through a journal, they may pick that up themselves. I know for me personally, I have a coworker who's amazing at just taking time out of her day to write notes to others. And I find myself, whenever I receive one, feeling inclined to go and do the same. So, and then again, it comes down to when you see that one of you, whether it's a child or a sibling or spouse that is really having a rough day, I just say, challenge them to list 3 things that you're grateful for right now in your life, in others, and in the world. It could be, just taking the opportunity to look at the stars on a beautiful night, checking out the moon, going on a hike and just admiring something, So again, just something, it doesn't have to be super formal, just modeling, really, I think is what I would like to highlight.
Can I add a little more to that? I think, and you touched on it a little bit, but gratitude is contagious. It's contagious with those around you, like you just shared, but it's also contagious within yourself. So like for myself, every morning I write 3 things that I'm grateful for. And throughout the day, when I notice those things that I wrote about happening, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so, so happy. It lifts my spirits. And those are just the things. So then I start to see more things that I'm grateful for. And I think it really helps turn your mindset to be more positive. You just start noticing more great things that you're grateful for as the day goes on, if you're actually making it an actionable thing.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And the next question here is about resilience. The 7 C's of resilience makes sense. But there's a lot there, as you mentioned, Haley, when you were talking about it. How would I start using this idea with my high schooler or even my kindergartner?
I think that if there was an eighth C, it would be collaboration, working collaboratively with your kids. So looking at that, you can use it as a way to evaluate what areas do we need to work on. And I think it is obviously different for a high schooler than it is a kindergartner. For your high schooler, they're a lot more in control, so they might need a lot more contribution will look different to them. So what gives their life purpose might be more external things like friends and doing things on their own, whereas your kindergartner, contribution, it might be their sports or their hobbies, but it could also be working at home with you, helping you even do things like the dishes and having something that they need to be doing every single day that keeps them responsible. I think for high schoolers, I was thinking, let me think which one character is probably a little bit different than the kindergartners, because having a strong sense of self-worth and confidence for middle schoolers, that's a little bit challenging. They're working on their confidence. So you can build their confidence by positive affirmations. They're amazing. Helping your kid notice those things in themselves. When they're feeling nervous about something at school, and this is applicable to all grade levels, when they're nervous about something, practicing positive affirmations and talking nicely about themselves can really help build that positive sense of self-worth. I know a lot of kids have been struggling with their confidence as they've spent so much time away from friends and peers. And so I think now more than ever, positive affirmations and being really aware of your self-talk is super important. Let me think. I would also say competence and being able to problem solve is really important, especially to the high schooler. One common thing that I'm hearing a lot from parents is, we've gotten so off balance with routines and we've been so lenient with rules or bedtime or screen time. All these things are really out of whack and our routines are just not what they normally are. And in order to get them back for next year, when we're back to normal, positivity, it's going to be really important to work together on those routines and establishing those things. So giving your student, your child, an opportunity to work collaboratively with you to reset those boundaries, because I guarantee and all parenting is acceptable, and I don't want to say that, but if you are trying to work on reestablishing those boundaries or those routines with your kid, it's going to go a lot easier if you allow them to be a part of the solution and practice those problem solving skills in real action with really important things like bedtimes. Sleep is so important. And I know a lot of kids are just totally out of whack with that right now. So working collaboratively, I think that's really important. Does anybody else have anything they want to add?
So I'll jump on that real quickly too. The research has consistently shown out of hundreds and hundreds of studies, the number one factor that predicts resilience is a close relationship with some sort of figure, whether that be a parent or a physician or somebody that the child can look up to that's a positive example for themselves. So I think even the question that was asked, it shows that here's a parent that's thinking about, well, how can I best be there for my kids? Checking in with them, everything that Haley mentioned, those are huge predictors in helping your kid overcome whatever they might be going through. So even just the appearance that someone cares for them goes a very long way. That's again shown over and over again.
One more thing just to add to that, another C, celebrate the small successes. So, considering I'm working in an elementary school with kindergartners each day, they came in this fall when we came back to this hybrid model. For the first time, they came to the school and sat in the classroom. So celebrating that small success. And then they went from 2 hours to a full day, celebrating that success that they were able to have the stamina just to be there away from their families for the first time. So just celebrating those small successes.
Perfect. I cannot thank you all enough. You're doing awesome. We have a couple more questions here. The next one is, what are some ways we can encourage our shy or introverted children to engage in life outside of technology as we return to the new normal, or hopefully return to the new normal. Yeah. That one's a little bit of a stumper there, huh?
I mean, I think routines are really important. I think building up a routine that kind of works with opportunities for screen time, but opportunities for being outside or spending time with friends as well. And I think you can just build that into the structure of your day. So, if screen time is, let's say, an hour each day, have that set after some other activity is scheduled. And you can even coordinate that with your kiddos. I think with teens, it can be definitely very tough, and sometimes you have to be creative, and sometimes you have to push them because it's hard to find a replacement for being online and playing video games, right? And I think part of the role of a parent is saying, okay, that's great, and that's an important part of your social network, depending on the game. And at the same time, we have to have these opportunities to do other things as part of a well-rounded development. So I think it's okay to set some boundaries, even if you have to pull out the USB or the HDMI cord every now and then.
Thanks, Dr. Day. Okay, let's see. Looks like we have one more that's the topic is support groups. So are you aware of any resources or support groups for parents who are needing help supporting their children in our area?
So I know that our school is currently, and I think it's a Wenatchee School District thing, is currently running Strengthening Families. And this is a support group to do strengthening families. And it provides really awesome opportunities to do fun things that are also covertly problem solving and working together. So some fun activities to practice problem solving together and practice some of these communication skills and all of that, which is a really cool opportunity. We might be running one more. I'll have to check on if we'll be running another session. I know we have one going right now. Yeah, so that's a really cool one.
Excellent. And I know that is with another one of our partnerships with Together for Youth to provide those strengthening family opportunities. Also, in pre-pandemic times, I know there was Love and Logic for parents that also came out, and that's a great resource and tool for our community members to take advantage of. Well, it looks like we have exhausted all the questions that have been given to us this evening. And so we will come to the conclusion of our program this evening. And I want to thank all of our audience and community members and students for participating in our presentation and our discussion tonight. Understanding the hidden gems during a pandemic like this is important for all of us to focus on moving forward. And, consequently, the resiliency strategies that we heard about tonight can help us fill our toolbox on how to combat stress. And we're looking forward to continuing our partnership here with Confluence and the behavioral health services moving forward. It's through partnerships like this and presentations like this that will allow us to grow and learn together and help create a more well-rounded and balanced community. So thank you all to our panelists here tonight, Dr. Day, Dr. Grass, Haley, Ernie, and Rosie. Thank you for everything. Great job tonight, and have a wonderful evening.